I think we're living in hell, Oliver, because there is a actual scandal underway. People are dying, and there is real questions over whether or not this person even knows what they're doing or whether or not they committed war crimes. We're gonna be super tough, except, wait a minute, we actually can't take any questions or any scrutiny from pesky little weak lib journalists.
Very cool, Pete Hegseth, you're so tough.
Welcome to Power Lines, presented this week by Beehive. I'm Jon Passantino.
And I'm his co-host, Oliver Darcy.
Today, Pete Hegseth is welcoming MAGA propagandists to the Pentagon after kicking out the press. The bidding war for Warner Brothers continues and now includes some Middle Eastern funds. Sabrina Carpenter is condemning the White House as evil and disgusting for using her song in an immigration clip. But first, Olivia Nuzzi is speaking out on camera for the first time as her melodramatic new book is hitting shelves. If you're not already subscribed to the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you're on YouTube, hit that alarm bell as well so you never miss an episode. Have you gotten your Black Friday shopping done? Have you done your holiday shopping?
No, I haven't done any holiday shopping, which I guess is concerning given that we don't have much time before the actual holidays. So I suppose I should start doing that. Have you done any of yours?
I think I'm almost done. I've lost track of what has actually been purchased and is in the mail, but I did a lot of online shopping this year. Some gifts for the wife and kids and
podcast co-host, obviously.
Of course. The gold bars are already in the mail on the way to your place.
Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about your little boo-boo. We'll be getting that to you before the holidays.
That one is a secret just for me. Don't let my kids see that one. Yeah, I feel like Black Friday deals were decent this year, but I wasn't blown away. I don't know. Maybe this is the effect of tariffs and everything else sort of washing over the economy, but I still just I loved getting it out of the way. So I think I'm almost done.
You know what I like to do on Black Friday? I like to open up my email and I like to look at all the deals that are happening and just browse them and peruse them. And, I think with great restraint, I'm not really sure I ordered anything on Black Friday itself. Maybe that's because the deals have been pouring in throughout the last 2 weeks. And I didn't order anything I don't recall on Black Friday itself. I just like browsing the deals. Just kind of a fun thing to do. It's like flipping through a magazine.
Yeah, I don't mean to turn this into a shopping podcast now, but it does feel like the entire month of November now has become the Black Friday month because it feels like for weeks ahead of Thanksgiving this year, I was already getting the save deals, 30% off. And some of them actually worked on me. I did buy a few things. So,
well, and then the problem with it is it extends forever. So then it extends into Cyber Monday. Black Friday becomes Cyber Monday. And then I was just looking at a brand. It's like Cyber Week. And then right before Christmas, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of extra sale. And then right after the holidays, of course, that's when the actual, the real sales happen, when they try to get rid of inventory. And then you have, particularly with clothing and whatnot, the winter stuff is they're trying to fly that off the shelves. And so then again, there's always a sale. I just feel like a lot of these brands too, you just never want to pay full price because it's always on sale every 2 or 3 weeks. Banana Republic, you would never want to buy something from Banana Republic at full price. I don't even know if you can because it's always on sale. But if you hit that window of 1 week where it's not, do not buy it. Just come back next week.
I guess this is a bad time to introduce that our sponsor this week is Banana Republic. So thanks for that, Oliver. Anyways, this week also, I'm surprised you didn't bring this up as your favorite stocking stuffer of the year, Oliver, but Olivia Nuzzi's new memoir is hitting shelves. It's currently ranking 6,700 on Amazon this morning. And
obviously, because we have not put our orders in. Once that happens, we'll jump to number one bestseller.
That's what's holding it up here. She makes a big splash with this book. We've been reporting on it for some time. But the book itself now hitting shelves, in which she talks about her relationship with RFK, what happened there, is also not exactly exciting the critics who are posted some pretty scathing comments about it. I think it was The Atlantic who called it a tell nothing as a memoir, and The Washington Post, this was pretty tough, called it a impressively and aggressively awful book. Pretty tough. I wonder, well, at the same time, this is coming as her ex-fiance, Ryan Lizza, has decided to publish what is sort of a tell-all of his own about what had transpired in the background when he found out that Nuzzi had been cheating on him. She, this week, as part of the rollout of her book, as part of her tour, spoke out for the first time on camera, and she spoke to Tim Miller over at The Bulwark, where they discussed for about an hour what's been going on, why she wrote the book. It was a pretty soft interview, I would say, to be fair. But I
think that'd be putting it generously. It was he recommended everyone buy the book at the end. He was, I'd say, incredibly sympathetic to her case. He was more upset at RFK and almost didn't prescribe her much agency in the whole situation, saying, I'm mad at RFK for what he did to you, as if she had really no role in that almost.
Yeah, I thought that was surprising too, because I get that RFK is currently a government official and he was trying to run for president at one point, but she is an adult and she is also a journalist who had a duty and ethical boundaries that she clearly decided to cross on her own. She has a number of excuses for that, but the reality is that she did these things, and so she lost her job at New York Magazine over them. But there was one, I think, really interesting moment in this Tim Miller interview, and let's check that out.
RFK wasn't even a Republican. It's possible that these senators could have not confirmed him, and you didn't share anything about him. Why? Why? Did you still love him, or was it just...
I don't know how to responsibly handle this on camera with you here. I
guess when you're saying that you have the distance now that have clarity, do you see clearly what he's doing now?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's what was your phrasing? It hasn't been good. I agree with that. You're sort of, I don't really know what to do with the question that you're asking me, because it's making a lot of assumptions. It's not making assumptions. It's just like you said you helped him, right, during the campaign. And I right about it. I write about what I did wrong. Yeah.
And it's once you've done that, you didn't, you cease to have become a journalistic actor, and you're.
Well, I lost my job, right? I was fired. Right. I was fired, and I was in hiding, and I was afraid.
Scared? Were you scared? Yeah.
I was terrified.
Of what?
I mean, I write in the book about, I was terrified of the man I did not marry. And I was very worried about people knowing where I was. And
I'm sorry.
Pause this? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we can pause it.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, notably, John did not answer the question, which he repeatedly asks. He asks her, should you have done more during RFK's confirmation hearing, given you had all this inside information about him, apparently doing drugs, obviously not being faithful to his wife, being erratic, and he repeatedly presses her on this, and she never answers the question, and then eventually you see seemingly breaks down, and they pause the interview, and you never really get an answer to that question, which is awfully convenient for her.
Yeah, I mean, she's obfuscating here, she's evading, she's ducking the questions. He presses her over and over, and pretty gently here, why didn't you just come out as a journalist or as just a citizen and say what was true in this moment, which is there's more to know about this guy, and she has no answer for it. She just uses every possible means to duck that. And it ends and concludes with her breaking down. I don't even know if that was genuine, honestly. You're watching this and you're why don't you just answer the question? And I think it's clear because she doesn't have a good answer for it, right? I mean, she has written about the fact that she was in love with Kennedy. She was having, he was effectively having an affair with her. We don't know if it was, like a physical one or if this was, more just like a, emotional affair. But I do think that what she doesn't want to say out loud here was that like she had a duty to come forward, especially as a journalist, and to say she knew a lot more here and that she chose not to because she still wanted to be with Kennedy. And that's incredibly, harmful to her reputation. And again, she is now employed by Condé Nast at Vanity Fair, where she is the West Coast editor on the masthead of the publication now. And to be asked this question of, well, after this all came out, why didn't you come forward? Is a very legitimate question. And as you see here, she does really everything possible to try to dodge on it. And I think that continues to speak about how she is an individual who cannot be trusted in this case, right? I don't know if I would want her in my newsroom. I mean, do you think that you can get a fair answer out of a journalist like her in any situation? If like you press her on a basic question, which is, you knew more, you had the story of a century and you didn't run it.
I thought that Helen Lewis at The Atlantic actually, in her review of the book, hit the nail on the head, and it really got at this moment, even though she read it before. Obviously, Olivia went on Tim Miller's show. She wrote, "There is no real believable regret in American Canto, not even when Nuzzi acknowledges that Kennedy used her badly and discarded her. Memoirs of temporary madness are usually written from the safe shore of sanity, but based on what's in the book, I suspect that if RFK Jr. turned up at Nuzzi's door tomorrow with a single rose and a hopeful smile, she would fall for it and him all over again." And then it goes on to say, "American Canto is written too early and too quickly. It's a first draft hastily typed into a smartphone, a bargaining chip to gain favorable news coverage, a down payment on a post-scandal career. A tell-all memoir? Ha! This is a tell-nothing memoir. Instead is a portrait of losing your soul, of discovering, as Nuzzi quotes from Nietzsche, that when you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you." I thought that really summed it up, John. And it seems like throughout this interview, she does not really, she sort of gently says, RFK is not doing a good job and, gets at a little bit of the drug use. But I suspect that she knows a lot more still than she is not revealing to the public. And when asked about it, and she doesn't have an answer, which is actually quite astonishing given that she is on book tour. It's almost like you watch the interview and it's like no one prepped her for basic questions. Like, Olivia, you're going to get these questions. How do you not have an answer rehearsed, ready to go for like the top 20 questions you're going to get during this book interview? It's really frustrating watching, actually, because it's like you're not really getting anything from her. It's just a lot of, I don't know. It doesn't feel like she's being a straight shooter. And that's actually how she rose to fame, because she was such a straight shooter when she would cover these political figures. She would say a lot of the things that everyone was thinking, but no one is actually writing down. And she would get at their personality defects. And in this case, it seems like she just cannot say the obvious things that are probably in her head. And that's, I think she even says, "I don't know how to deal with this on camera with you. Like, if we were off camera, I could tell you a lot more, but on camera, I can't share." And I think that's part of the problem. And you also have to wonder, she retained, or Simon & Schuster retained, Risa Heller's crisis PR firm to deal with this book. And Risa Heller, for those that don't know, is one of the top, crisis communicators in America. And did she prep Olivia for this? Was Olivia just not listening to feedback or receptive to feedback? Unclear. And then the final thing, John, I'll say too about this is this was a friendly venue. She's only doing friendly media for the most part, or media that's not going to aggressively challenge her. She wasn't asked a number of questions by Tim Miller in this interview, including the most recent allegation: did you also have a romantic relationship with another presidential candidate you covered, Mark Sanford, who has not commented notably on this when we've asked him for comment. And that's an allegation from Ryan Lizza. The other allegations: did you burn sources at New York Magazine in service of RFK, as Ryan Lizza has suggested or written, not suggested? A lot of basic questions were not asked by Tim Miller here. And even despite this friendly interview, this is someone who recommended everyone buy her book afterward. She's still, for some reason, unable to answer basic questions.
Yeah, no, it's clear that they're friends, right? I mean, and Tim sort of is relatively open about that. I mean, talking about they could go to brunch together, and she's like, "You can borrow my shoes," and
and that's fine.
Like very,
that's no one. I mean, that's fine. You're allowed to have friends and whatnot. I just don't know if you should do that interview if you can't. You know, I guess you either it's a difficult situation. It didn't feel like he was doing a fantastic interview of her, and I think
but it works. It works for Olivia, right? She wants to come out. I think both between this book and the interviews that she has had, and portray herself as a victim in this case, and in that sense, this interview helped her along with that. Where
she
portrays herself,
right? It's sort of even then, that's the point. Even despite him friendly, being a friend and nudging her in the right direction, and just asking very calmly, like, do you regret not doing more? Shouldn't you have done more? She doesn't have a good answer. It's like, well, I wrote about it. Well, yeah, you wrote about it way late. He's in the office. He's just distorting or just warping the Department of Health and Human Services. He's firing career scientists. He's rolling back vaccine mandates. He's doing a lot of horrible things. And you had the chance, 10 months ago or a year ago, whenever it was, to raise your hand and say, I have information on this guy.
Right. And she says he's a liar and that she doesn't like what he's doing now at HHS. So it's also quite remarkable that she had an opportunity and chose not to. She continues to say in this interview that she was so afraid to do anything, to say anything. But when actually pressed on what it is that she was afraid of or who she was afraid of, she never says anything. And it
she does. She says she was afraid of her ex, Ryan Lizza, and not the RFK, which is also notable. So she was hiding, it sounds, if you don't pay close attention, like she was hiding from RFK. Mm-hmm. But when pressed on it, she basically says, the man I did not marry, which is, she's referring to Ryan Lizza there, her ex-fiance, the former New Yorker and political writer who is now writing these Substack posts telling all. It's actually interesting what a contrast it is. He seems to be telling a lot. I don't know if he's telling all, but certainly dumping all the receipts he has. And in contrast to her memoir, which is, it doesn't really feel, it feels like she's, has a lot locked in the safe there still.
Right. She called Lizza, she did respond to Lizza in this interview saying that he's been violating fan fiction / revenge porn. So she did go after him pretty aggressively. Funny enough, she didn't actually do that about RFK, despite the fact that he is the central character in all of this. All right, well, we will see where this story goes. It's still an open question right now, whether or not Vanity Fair will continue to employ her. As we've reported, she is under review from them. And as we've also reported, that her contract there supposedly ends at, maybe the end of this year here in the next few weeks. So her continued employment there, I think, remains an open question. And I'm very curious whether or not they're going to keep her, especially as they continue to see this slow-moving train wreck unfold before them. And all that this does is just raise more questions about like what Vanity Fair is doing and what they're
scanning. What are they doing, by the way, John? That's the question. Like, what is this review? And, I would have loved if Tim Miller asked her about this as well. Have you spoken to Vanity Fair? Have they asked you any questions about, any of the allegations that Ryan Lizza has made? They keep saying we're doing this review. What does that entail? Does that entail bringing her in for questioning? It doesn't, I've had a guess. It doesn't seem like she has been brought in for any serious questioning. Have they hired a third party like New York Magazine did, a law firm to look into this? Like, what does it mean that they keep saying we are reviewing the facts? Okay, well, what does that exactly mean? Because like, have they put on a reporter to look into, like, what are they? It's very strange. It almost feels like they're just saying something. And when you press them on it, as we did this week in the status newsletter, they don't comment. There's no comment. This is like, they put out this, I think, 13-word statement saying they were surprised and we're looking into it. And there's been no update since then. A lot of allegations have happened since then. They won't even say, John, whether she has access to company email, whether she still has access to editorial meetings if she wanted to participate in those where sensitive information might be shared amongst the editorial staff about what they're working on, and I think that's remarkable. And Anna Wintour and Roger Lynch, those are the people running this company, and they're just kind of sitting on their hands. And I have a hard time imagining that any serious news leader, like let's just say if this were happening at the New York Times, I can't imagine Joe Kahn and A.G. Sulzberger just sitting on their hands and saying, we were surprised and we're looking into it, and that's it.
All right, well, when we come back, Pete Hegseth is welcoming MAGA propagandists to the Pentagon after kicking out the press.
Prime Video presents Gen V from the World of the Boys. Season 2 follows the students at Golden University as a civil war is brewing between superheroes and humans. The university's mysterious and charismatic new dean is unveiling a curriculum designed not just to train heroes, but to forge soldiers. And it's up to Marie Moreau and her friends to stop him. This year, campus life isn't just lectures, frat parties, and superpowered butt chugs. It's a snapshot of a nation at war with itself. Between what's real and what's fake, democracy and oppression, and the fight to hold on to hope in the face of evil. RogerEbert.com calls it sharper and sleeker, and IndieWire says it's impressive, entertaining, and ambitious. Gen V is awards eligible in Best Comedy Series and available at ConsiderAmazon.com.
And we're back. So just a reminder, if you're not already subscribed to the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you're on YouTube, give us a like. It really helps the show. Oliver, this week, a pretty remarkable and honestly dystopian moment over at the Pentagon where Pete Hegseth, the former Fox News host who's now the Secretary of Defense, amazingly, invited what can only be described as a sympathetic group of MAGA media folks over there. They are now welcomed into the building to cover the Department of Defense instead of your traditional press corps. Those are your reporters who work for places like the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, the AP. They're no longer in the building because Pete Hegseth threw them out after they refused to sign what is a draconian pledge that they would not report on anything that the government does not approve, and went even further that if they solicited information that they could be in actual legal trouble, which of course no news organization is going to sign. Give me a break. If this was happening under Obama, people, the right would be freaking out. But here we are. So this week, the Pentagon press secretary decided to hold a private briefing. Her name is Kingsley Wilson, exclusively for these MAGA media personalities. They streamed it on YouTube. We caught a glimpse of it. It's pretty wild. While Hegseth and the department are under really intense scrutiny right now for these airstrikes that are hitting these boats in the Caribbean, including one of them from back in September, where apparently there were multiple strikes, and 2 of them that we know of, which raises questions about whether or not it was legal or if there was a war crime committed here. We could do a whole separate podcast on that. But we went into the briefing room and instead saw a completely alternate universe of questions. What did you make of this?
Well, for one, it felt like a glance into some Orwellian American future where the press secretary walks up to the podium and before her are just a set of propagandists who only ask basically, questions that the government is not going to find offensive. And there's no aggressive pushback to her obvious bullshit. That was disturbing in itself, that's happening in America. Like, you might see that or expect that in Russia, where, maybe the defense minister comes before the gathered media and they are all obviously government propagandists. You do not expect to see that in the United States of America. In fact, again, I think one of the great things about this country is traditionally, we've celebrated the fact that our government officials take hard questions, often aggressive questions from the press corps, because that's who we are as a people. We hold our government accountable, and Republicans and Democrats have, for the most part, celebrated this throughout the last, throughout the decades, throughout the history of this country. In the First Amendment, the press has these rights, and to see this administration transform the Pentagon press briefing room into a propaganda vessel is disturbing and I don't know, highly alarming. And I feel like it's also alarming given that this is almost being normalized. Like this isn't like a huge deal. This is just like, this is how the Pentagon is now run. And so I thought that was disturbing watching the press briefing and this. And then the fact that the people that they are welcoming into the Pentagon are also the worst people really on earth. Like you have Laura Loomer, who literally self-describes herself as an Islamophobe. And she's, obviously a right-wing conspiracy theorist at the press briefing now. You have Jack Posobiec of Pizzagate fame at the press briefing now. You have James O'Keefe at this media briefing. You have the right-wing conspiracy site, the Gateway Pundit at this briefing. Like it's all the worst people. And that's who this government is trying to elevate. Pete Hegseth is afraid of real journalists. So he had to kick them out. He had to exile them from the Pentagon before he sent his press secretary up to that podium to answer questions.
That's exactly right. He is afraid of journalists uncovering
big strong Pete Hegseth, big warrior mindset Pete Hegseth is so afraid of these journalists asking pesky questions.
Yeah, he's a really tough guy. And remember, he used to be a host at Fox News where he would go off on the last administration for not being transparent in the way that he wanted it, for claiming that the press was soft on the Obama administration or the Biden administration, that is. And here we are where he's kicking out everybody who would ask any basic questions.
Even Fox News. We should remind everyone, even Fox News got exiled from the Pentagon. His former employer, Fox News, would not sign the restrictive press rules that they put into place, which should say a lot. I mean, we are so far gone when Fox News, which is effectively the biggest propaganda organ in MAGA media or in Trump's media universe, gets exiled from the Pentagon.
So Wilson, who's holding this press conference over there, if you want to call it that, this briefing, instead, she just tries her hardest to make it seem like these are legitimate people. She says, instead, we are welcoming new media outlets that actually reach Americans, ask real questions, and don't pursue a biased agenda. She actually said that out loud with a straight face. This is like laughable. This is like comedy.
I'm laughing just hearing it from you right now.
This is like,
it's so ridiculous.
You're living in the upside down. This is just complete junk. Also, like this is how you reach the echo chamber. James O'Keefe, Jack Posobiec, Laura Loomer, these are echo chamber far-right people who just exist on X. This is not how you reach real America. Nobody who's like living in Missouri is like legitimately trying to get their information about what is going on in the Pentagon and whether or not there is some truth to these airstrikes that may have killed people without due process, like murdering them, from Jack Posobiec. Like this is so absurd on its face, and they know this, right? And obviously, we know that Pete Hegseth is under a lot of pressure. We've got the whole Signalgate issue that happened in the past where we know that he was using this private, I guess, commercial messaging service, and he accidentally added in Jeffrey Goldberg, the Atlantic editor, to it. He has been firing important members and leadership of the Pentagon. He does not want journalists in that building asking questions, but that's because he is uncomfortable, he is afraid, and he's doing the opposite of the thing that he is projecting, which is the strong, tough guy leading the Department of War. No, this is Snowflake Pete all day long. And I don't think anybody outside of that building, including Republicans, are thrilled to see this sort of thing happen. They have clearly been uncomfortable with it. And I think at this point, it really rests on Donald Trump. There's one person he's trying to continue to please here as to whether or not a Fox News host who is totally unqualified to run the largest government agency with tens of thousands of employees and a monstrous budget of billions of dollars is going to continue to be able to remain there. And in the meantime, you have no press in the building. But we're talking about things like these airstrikes on these boats that are supposedly carrying drugs. even though these drugs boats maybe have a 100-mile range of gas in the tank, they're not going to. Can these boats reach 1,000 miles to reach the United States
more.
shores?
Isn't it like 2,000 or something?
It's quite far.
For people who don't understand too, it sounds almost like if you were to like listen to these guys, like these boats are off the coast of like Miami, right? Like they're just like off our shores. No, these boats are long. They're nowhere near the shores of the United States. They're not even like close to Cuba, right? Like they're like off the coast of Venezuela, which is far away.
Literally nowhere near. They're in a different hemisphere. They're in the southern hemisphere from us. So, but in the meantime, while he's not taking questions from the press, he's instead sitting down with another propagandist. Her name is Katie Miller. She's the wife of Stephen Miller, the Trump official. He sat down this week instead on her podcast along with his wife inside the Pentagon where, well, let's roll the tape.
Would you rather step on Legos every morning or sit through another Senate confirmation hearing? Who's harder to negotiate with? Two competing world powers or your kids trying to get out the house in the morning?
Yeah, you don't negotiate with terrorists.
What kind of wings do you prefer? Flats, drums, or boneless?
Flats all the way.
Now I'm a drum, so it works out well for me.
Yes. The flats and the drums always find each other.
Yes.
And get married.
I want to leave behind the strongest, most disciplined, powerful, capable military in the world.
My God, that's so embarrassing. The real questions America was really asking, Pete Hegseth, Mr. Department of War, is it chicken wings with flats or the drumsticks, sir? Give me a break.
I mean, I don't even know what to say. I think that clip speaks for itself. I mean, that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want real questions. He just wants to.
No, he wants to leave behind the strongest military that anyone has ever seen. We're going to get women out of combat roles. We're going to be super tough. Except, wait a minute, we actually can't take any questions or any scrutiny from pesky little weak lib journalists. It's astonishing. But this is what he's spending time doing instead. And that interview, by the way, it's not like a few seconds. That is like an hour-long interview. And they go on to talk about his favorite shows that they're binging, restaurants that they enjoy. I think we're living in hell, Oliver, because there is a actual scandal underway, and we are with human lives. People are dying. And there is real questions over whether or not this person even knows what they're doing or whether or not they committed war crimes. There's real questions about it, even from Republicans, right? Judge Andrew Napolitano, who his former colleague from Fox News, went on Newsmax and said, this is war crimes.
Right. I was going to say there's the right-wing media universe is kind of being split to some extent. It's mostly supportive of Pete Hegseth, and he's getting coverage like we just played from Katie Miller. But there are some, there's a growing resistance, I think, to Pete Hegseth that you're seeing. And it's, Judge Napolitano on Newsmax. I thought George Wills was interesting. Obviously, the steward of at least traditional conservatism, saying Hegseth seems to be a war criminal without a war, an interesting achievement, which is quite a point. And then the Wall Street Journal editorial board, they didn't say he's a war criminal, but they did say the charge of deliberately killing the defenseless is serious enough to warrant a close look from Congress. And then they went on to say that Mr. Hegseth should give an account under oath. So they want him in front of Congress testifying. But while, there are some people like George Will and Napolitano and the Journal editorial board, the overall theme, I think, in right-wing media is still much more of the Katie Miller persuasion. And I think that's what I think a lot of Americans are consuming pro-Hegseth content still. And if you watch Fox News, which is the big one, the big microphone, I'll read to you some of the things. Jesse Waters, this week, the APM host over there, said, the liberal media is going hog wild over the Coke boat hoax.
It's a hoax now.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's a hoax. Greg Gottfeld said, it's just better for us to kill them in the ocean and make them shark feed. Be done with it. Merry Christmas.
Jesus Christ. That actually reminds me of my absolute favorite podcast host, Megyn Kelly. She also addressed this issue on her show. Let's take a look at what she said.
So I really do kind of not only want to see them killed in the water, whether they're on the boat or in the water, but I'd really like to see them suffer. I would like Trump and Hegseth to make it last a long time so that they lose a limb and bleed out a little. I'm really having a difficult time ginning up sympathy for these guys who 10 seconds earlier almost got taken out by the initial bomb, but because they managed to get ejected, a little too soon, had to be taken out in the water. I realize legally it may make a difference, but truly, Mark, this is a tough case to really gin up the sympathies of the American people.
Yeah.
My goodness, maybe I missed it, but was she wearing her Christian cross on her neck like she normally does when she called for the torture and suffering of civilians? It's shocking to me that Megyn Kelly, who people used to watch on the Today Show and used to be a quote unquote journalist, is now doing things like this, calling for, I'd really like to see them suffer. I want it to take a long time. Like,
wants their limbs blown off?
What?
And to watch it, apparently? Like, what in the world is wrong with Megyn Kelly?
It's incredibly disturbing. But this is where people are getting their
people are getting their
information, but understanding of events, right?
I mean, I just think it's astonishing what's become of Megyn Kelly, though. I mean, let's just focus on that for 2 seconds. Like, what the hell happened to Megyn Kelly? I mean, it's one thing to be ideologically conservative. I never remember conservatives, though, celebrating, I guess, the torture of people like that. I mean, that just seems so over the line. And Megyn Kelly, who is a lawyer, says, I guess it might make a difference legally. Like, yeah, you think? Maybe there's a reason it might make a difference legally, because the United States should not be about intentionally torturing people and killing people, and the defenseless too. And so I think the thing that we haven't talked about either is they strike the boats. That's bad enough because there's been no due process for these people. It's not like
we have no evidence. We have no public proof right now.
It's just the Trump administration. So,
we're just taking their word.
We're just taking the Trump administration's word, which is probably never a good idea. So that's one. So they strike these supposed drug boats with no evidence that they're actually smuggling drugs. They don't intercept them and detain the people and then say, look, we found drugs aboard and here are the pictures of the drugs. And there's none of that. They just blow them out of the water. And then in the case that's causing a lot of controversy, they apparently had survivors and they go back a second time to kill the survivors, which would be a war crime. I'm not a legal expert like Megyn Kelly, but I know very well that killing survivors constitutes a war crime. And she apparently doesn't think that's enough. She wants to see their limbs torn off. What? I just find it disturbing that a lot of Americans are being radicalized with Megyn Kelly. And they're following her down this scary rabbit hole into the point where they want to see people just tortured, I guess.
This is evil stuff. This is
yeah.
like the definition of evil stuff. Like, I want to see people die and suffer. And we have no evidence that these people have actually done anything.
Even in the United States, let's just put it this way. Even in the United States, when someone is convicted of the most heinous crimes, they are lethally injected generally, right? If they get the death penalty. There's no tearing off their limbs and video recording them suffering, right? And these are the people that are actually gone through the court of law and they've been convicted of something really, really heinous. But because as a society, we recognize that, medieval time torture is not the way to go, we don't do that. I thought we've evolved as a society, but people like Megyn Kelly prove that, it's like she wants the Game of Thrones torture chamber.
I do think it's possible that Hegseth is toast over this whole issue because it is a major distraction. And I think it's a big problem for him. And I don't think Trump wants to do this forever. And I think if he loses enough Republican support, which at this point, it's not looking great to have bipartisan calls to investigate this situation. I do think that as Republicans are seeing, the writing on the wall in terms of public support for this administration and for these kind of tactics, I do think that it won't bid well for our former Fox News host. And I'm actually more curious if he'd be welcome back to the network after all of this.
I can't imagine he would be.
Yeah, I hesitate to even think that they would want him back. This is pretty terrible stuff. Anyway.
And he also, talking about bloodthirsty folks on the right, posted that meme. What was the meme? It was like him shooting down, using the turtle.
It was Franklin
raining fire on them.
The turtle is pulling out this gigantic cannon and shooting these people on these boats.
Yeah, and that was what Pete Hegseth posted in the middle of this controversy. Very cool, Pete Hegseth. You're so tough.
Again, all of this is performative for a very small echo chamber in which they reside in, which is on Elon Musk's platform and for like the Fox News audience. It is not for the rest of the country. And I think that we are watching what happens when you get these radicalized people from these algorithmic platforms put into positions of power, and they're doing unhinged, totally nuts things. And then their reaction is a meme that's AI generated to act like they don't even care about it. And we're talking about people being killed here, and we're talking about potential war crimes. This is all really serious now. This isn't a joke. When we come back, Sabrina Carpenter is condemning the White House for using her song in an immigration clip.
Let me take a quick minute to tell you about the platform we use to run Status. It's called Beehive, and I've got a special offer for readers coming up. But first, here's a little background on why Beehive was right for Status. When I started this newsletter, I needed a platform that could grow with us. Something powerful enough for serious publishers, but simple enough to build without a large team of engineers or designers.
That's exactly what we found with Beehive. It was built by the same team behind Morning Brew, so they understand what it takes to grow an audience and build a real business around your work. Since launching, 2 things have made a huge difference. First, our newsletter actually reaches people because the deliverability is outstanding. We don't really have to worry about spam filters anymore. Second, the paid subscription setup is incredibly easy. This is where you can charge for access to your newsletter. Beehive handles payments, subscriber management, all of it. That lets us stay focused on the journalism while the platform turns our work into a sustainable business.
Whether you're an independent writer or running a larger publication, Beehive gives you everything in one place. A clean editor, a website for your publication, powerful growth tools like referrals and recommendations, and multiple ways to make money from day one. If you're thinking about starting a newsletter or switching platforms, Beehive is offering Status readers 30% off your first 3 months with code STATUS30.
Visit beehive.com/status. That's BEEHIIV.com/status and start building your newsletter today. Welcome back. Reminder, if you're not already subscribed to the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you're on YouTube, hit that alarm bell and like us so you never miss an episode. It really helps. All right, this week, Oliver, the bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery is heating up. On Monday, we know that they were all of the bidders, Comcast, Paramount, Netflix, those are the ones we know of at least, were all were ordered to submit sweetened bids for Warner Brothers. This is the David Zaslav-led media conglomerate. That's HBO, CNN, Turner, all the big names you know. The Paramount bid, though, which is from David Ellison and backed by one of the world's richest men, his father, Larry Ellison, they went shopping in the Middle East for some cash as well. They submitted what I think is an all cash bid for Warner Brothers, which is probably pretty exciting and probably pretty inviting for them. But that is apparently backed by the sovereign wealth funds of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. I think that sort of raises some questions as to whether or not, this is a great idea to have this kind of backing. What do you make of this?
Well, imagine being a CNNer and you're a journalist, and potentially Saudi Arabia, which again butchered a journalist not too long ago, only a few years ago, ordered the butchering of Jamal Khashoggi. That country, that fund, could potentially be a part owner of CNN. Mm-hmm. That is really striking. And then not like the other two are much better. There's not a great track record of freedom of the press across the Middle East. And so I think if you're a CNNer in particular, it raises a lot of questions that these countries could be, underwriting some of your journalism.
Yeah, I think it is a little uncomfortable. And I can't imagine this is making people excited. This could potentially also raise questions for whether or not the federal government would be able to approve a deal like this. It could go under some additional regulatory scrutiny because you have these foreign funds that would be involved. I kind of wonder if whether or not this signals that Daddy Ellison, who has seen his stock fortunes sort of fall recently after touching world's richest man status not long ago with Elon and the others, whether or not he really wants to be on board for this truckload of billions of dollars in cash for his son to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, which, as we know, has had a very difficult time in fulfilling what was its goal and strategy of competing with Netflix on this stage. And I kind of wonder, do you need that cash really, or is this because maybe Larry Ellison doesn't want to open up the wallet and really fork everything over for it?
Who knows? I mean, it could have also been a defensive move to deny Brian Roberts the ability to get that Middle Eastern cash and knock him out of the ring. So I don't know. I do think, though, that anytime you have Middle East money involved, it raises a number of ethical questions. I mean, Saudi Arabia, as we've talked about, wants to do everything it can to portray itself as a Western country so that it can get that investment. And so even outside CNN and maybe being able to at least have some influence over coverage because you're underwriting the journalism, but having a movie shot in Saudi Arabia, right? Having Hollywood actors come to Saudi Arabia, it would be a great thing for them in terms of marketing. And so you could see why they'd be very interested in this. And, Middle Eastern money has started seeping into entertainment in the United States. It's not new. Obviously, they started with sports and golf. And so this would be a natural next step. And the White House under this administration, welcomed in the Crown Prince, MBS, and has made it very clear that they want business leaders doing business with that country. That's why they hosted MBS for that dinner in which they invited Tim Cook, David Ellison, all these top business leaders. And so you are also probably currying a little favor from the White House, too, if you do a little business with that country. So I guess we'll see.
Interesting. Speaking of the White House, I don't know if you saw this week, but they posted on X, their favorite platform, this immigration roundup video that was set to a Sabrina Carpenter track. She's that Grammy award-winning singer. Sabrina
she does not need an introduction, John. Sabrina Carter maybe does. I don't know who Sabrina Carter is. Sabrina Carpenter.
She, though, is pretty pissed off. She replies to the White House on X saying, "This video is evil and disgusting. Do not ever involve me or my music to benefit your inhumane agenda." She is going hard at them. That, by the way, as of this taping, has 86 million views on it. I sort of question Elon Musk's view count, but this is pretty wild. We've seen other artists obviously go after the White House for using their music or let's say political campaigns, especially Republicans. But I do think that this is pretty remarkable. What do you make of it?
I agree. I think it's interesting to seeing the different tacks that artists are taking. So Sabrina Carpenter obviously not holding back and quite directly telling the White House not to use her music. You've seen Olivia Rodrigo also, I think, take somewhat of this kind of tact, and a number of other artists. But then, at least in the female pop arena, someone like Taylor Swift has been, I think, a lot more restrained in the way she's dealt with. I mean, the White House has used her music, not in ICE ads, but they have used her music on social media, and you have not seen, Taylor come out and really that tweet from Sabrina looked very casual, like she just typed it out on her iPhone. I don't know if that's true or not, but you have not seen Taylor take that kind of action against this White House. And I think there's always when these artists are thinking about this, they don't want to alienate fans, right? Like they want to be unifying forces. And I think that's very challenging, obviously, today. And I'm sure Sabrina Carpenter, seeing her music mixed to like ICE detaining people in the country, was not something that she wanted to see, and obviously prompted a very visceral reaction. But I still think, kind of like a rare instance, right, of someone telling the White House to go to hell.
Yeah, I mean the video is gross. I mean they're trying to like make these things look cool. These immigration roundup videos, people in handcuffs. But it's grotesque stuff. Speaking of pushback and getting triggered, you see this Dan Bongino situation, our friend who is the deputy director of the FBI, tough guy in charge over there. He was super mad this week on X, upset at what would be otherwise a friendly reporter, New York Post journalist Miranda Devine. Devine,
yeah.
Divine.
Deep State Divine is how
that's what I was going to just say.
Refers to her
Deep
now.
State Divine strikes again, he wrote. He's super pissed. What is he mad about? He's mad that Rupert Murdoch's a New York Post, Divine reported that inside of the FBI, that some of the agents in there think of him as a clown, and that he and his bestie Kash Patel, who amazingly is the FBI director, can't believe this world we're living in, have an obsession with social media. He went on X then and completely loses it. It is remarkable to watch the Snowflake.
Kind of proving her point too, by the way.
Actually, good point. Miranda loves attacking our reform agenda with gossipy anecdotes from disgruntled former employees. Blah, 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 air quotes on reporting. Did you see this? What do you think about this?
I saw this. Obviously, I saw Dan Bongino, our good friend Dan Bongino. Of course, we saw this. I think it's hilarious that he is constantly these days triggered by like the MAGA media types. This is not the first time he's been railing against someone who would be, like you said, considered a friendly media personality. Miranda Devine is not someone who is like some lib journalist, right? She's like working for Rupert Murdoch. She's like, on his side, if you will. Except in this case. Then you have like him raging at Glenn Beck's outlet or about the Glenn Beck outlet report, pushing a conspiracy theory about the January 6th pipe bomb. You had obviously them really upset about the criticism they were getting over the Epstein files when they were declining to release them all. It's so ironic because Dan Bongino was playing this role for so long as a right-wing podcast host. And now that he's in government, he cannot stand any kind of criticism, and he particularly doesn't like the kind of criticism, apparently, that pushes conspiracy theories. And I'm like, Dan, do you know how you made all your money? Like this is you. If anyone should get it, it's him, right? This is the thing that he did for many years as a right-wing podcaster.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is feels like an early winter here in the East, and the snowflakes are out in full force between Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth. They're all really hot and bothered right now by all this stuff, and like they just can't stop. They're all posting through it, I think, and it is remarkable that we get to watch this happen. But this is emblematic of how, the right is sort of going after each other, right? And we've seen a ton of this lately between the Tucker Carlson thing with Nick Fuentes, like the sort of knives are out for each other. And I think that sort of infighting also suggests that they are not feeling like they are getting done with this, what would be dreamy Trump administration with all of their best buds all in power, not getting anything done.
I was going to use a Sabrina Carpenter pun and say that the bad chem is bad.
Exactly.
Probably should end the episode after that.
It's wild. I think that MAGA is really unhappy about the fact that you've got all these guys, all their besties in power, and we're not getting things done. And they aren't seeing the changes that they had long rallied for on, far right platforms. And now they're in positions of power and getting any scrutiny at all, and especially showing that they have no idea what they're doing. I mean, Divine actually reported that at one point, Kash Patel refused to get off an airplane until he was given a female agent's jacket. Is there anything more emasculating for Kash Patel than to have it reported that he wouldn't get off an airplane until a woman gave him his jacket? I mean, this is hysterical. No wonder they're freaking out, right? But I do think this is pretty incredible because we are seeing these tough guys in positions of power and unable to take even the mildest amount of heat. And here we are. So it's a kind of a Christmas present come early. All right. Well, Oliver, it's been another fun one with you.
I guess I don't need, to bring it full circle from the beginning. don't need to go Christmas shopping because these guys are just dropping Christmas gifts off every day. Don't think, John, that that's going to be good enough for me this year, though. I want an actual gift from you.
I told you the gold bars are in the mail. I mean, any day now.
Did you get them at Costco?
Costco sells them. Yeah.
So generous. Thank you, John.
Well, I do what I can. Here at Status, only the best.
Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so we can afford better Christmas gifts next year.
All right, that's it for us this week. Oliver, it was great talking to you. We'll be back for more. Hope you have a great one.
See you, John.
Thank you for listening to Powerlines, a presentation of Status, and a special thank you to Beehive for sponsoring this episode. The show is produced by Matt Havia and Antonio Enriquez in association with In the Arena Studios. Please like, share, and subscribe to Powerlines on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen, and watch full episodes and clips on our YouTube page at Status.